Okay, I am going to create a ring base. So this is a ring base right here that I do for my stairs. And some bases are set up to go into a specific place, but I want them to be detachable. Sometimes they aren't though, because of in the firing it ends up being connected. So here's the ring base that goes with this bird sphere. So I'm creating a ring base for my sphere, that the Earth sphere. So there's a ring. So I'm going to just show you how I go through that. Part of my concern is I want the ring base to have the same radius. Well, this is the same radius as the spheres. And so I essentially just take this styrofoam ball that you can essentially buy at Michael's, and I cover it with a piece of cloth. Oops, I got this backwards. Cover it with a piece of cloth so that the clay won't stick to it. And then I cover this with a piece of cloth. And then I just basically take a board and I apply pressure. And so it's creating the indented sphere. Now I'm creating a sphere right here just for the practical use of being able to do this. But I'm doing it out of clay. So this is something I just started doing. So this is the same size. But this way there'll be no give. It'll be, once it's fired, it'll be solid. And then what I'm going to do is I might even fix it so that it has, well, I might do two versions of this. One where it's just smooth like this, and then one where, well, I might do that on the styrofoam version where I put sandpaper on it so that if I want to make the sphere a little bit smaller, I can just grind it on the sandpaper. But essentially what I do is I just flatten it out. You know, take a bit of clay. And then I come in here and I measure it. 5.5, 5.5, 6. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not going to get it exact right now, but I get it close. A little under 6, 5 3/4, 5.5, and then you can kind of see that it rocks a little bit. So the exact part will be once I get the ring done, because what you can do is you can take this ring. The radius part of this ring is right here. The flat part's right here. But if I want to make the ring consistent, I can just spritz some water on the canvas of my table or anything, and then just take this and grind it down. You know, it's kind of like sanding it, and just take a ruler until I get all four sides, you know, all the sides around whatever I want it to be, 1 inch. But the radius is consistent regardless. So once I've done that, I essentially have my radius for sure. So I already have one right here that I created. And so I'll show you how I do this. I have this, it's like a washer, but it's made out of plastic that I made. And it's just this little tiny washer that's got a little hole in it for the pin on my compass to go into. So that when I do this, mark the ring, it doesn't bury, the compass doesn't bury into the clay. So let's say I want to make it, I'm going to make this small, this ring small. So I'm going to go 2 3/4 outside ring. So I put this on there to prevent my prevents my compass from burying into the clay. And then I just essentially put my compass in there. And make my outside mark. So that's the outside of my ring. So now I want to make the inside of my ring. Now this one you can do by eye if you want. But the thing about it is with that piece of plastic in there, there's not going to be a variation because it kind of embeds itself into the clay. So my center point for my compass will maintain a consistency to it. So one thing, keep in mind, this clay is a little bit wet right now. But there I've established my ring. So when I start carving it out, which I'm not going to right now, I will essentially grab a tool over here. That's the problem with doing some of these videos is you want a tool or something. I'm going to let this dry a little bit, but I essentially, what I'll do is I'll dig out the center before I go on the edges. So I'll just essentially carve out the center and stay away from the interior edge. And then the same with this. I'll just take I'll take a lot of the outside of that just really quick, so I'm not affecting the edge. Just get rid of this excess. So, you know, you might think this is a little bit extreme, you know, to establish the radius of a sphere, but I want it to kind of, I want when it's being fired to sit on a consistent base. So you can see this clay is really pretty wet. So I'm going to let this dry, but essentially when I carve all this out, I'll end up with this. And I don't have to worry about two ends being stuck together. I mean, you could just take a piece of flat clay and then do the radius after if you wanted to. But you know, when I take a piece of flat clay, why not just put the radius, insert the radius application into it? You know, another thing is you could take a flat piece and just glue. I mean, granted, it's kind of a process, but you could glue sandpaper on top of this radius. And then once this is dry, you could essentially just, and you'd have your radius. So there's all kinds of ways to do this. But the one key takeaway that I want is where that sphere is going to sit, I want it to be seated against a consistent radius. So I hope this helps anybody that might, you know, be interested. So everybody, take care.